If nobody watches the reviews I make of films that everyone has seen, then perhaps everyone will watch the reviews I make of films that nobody has seen. Oh, delightfully devious. And certainly the critics will take notice of my critical thinking skills and my snooty upper lip and high brow. Although I must be careful not to alienate my audience with an overly pretentious presentation. Oh yes, Kingdom of Neptune, the gorgeous sea. I love the uncertainty of the waters in this shot. Really reminds you of the rough seas, much as is life, and of course, also reminiscent of Hemingway's. Oh, apologies, I didn't realise that we'd started filming. But of course I was discussing art much in the way we always do here on Any Good, or should I say, is it any good? Because grammar, of course, we speak the King's English on this channel. And as I was saying, this week we are discussing the fine arts, and that is the cinematic opus directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. Sorry, it's just too classy still. I deliberately didn't wear a suit. I bought cheaper whiskey to drink and still too highbrow. I gotta find a way to make this more relatable and lowbrow for the working man, you know? If only I could find a way. Yeah, that ought to do it. I'm kidding around, but we are going to talk about some different films than what we usually talk about. We normally talk about blockbusters and superhero films, and you know, let's mix it up. We've done loads of these now. It's time to stir things up a bit. And also, you know, it's winter, so like, what? Oh, you want me to talk about Wonka?
In fact, in Lumperland, I am regarded as something of a whopper. A whopper, whopper, whopper. Whopper.
I've gotten by so far in my life without knowing the secret origin of Willy Wonka or whatever it is, and I don't really need to know it, because it's probably involves, like, I don't know, slavery. I don't know what the status of, or employment status of the Oompa Loompas is, but regardless, let's talk about some different films. And of course, some of these have not been released in some territories, so because of that, I will be doing no spoilers. And in case of our first film, if you haven't seen it, you poor things. That's the first film.
It's an experiment.
Good evening.
Her brain and her body are not quite synchronized.
Yorgos Lanthimos presents More Weird Shit. So glad we get to talk about this instead of superhero films. Poor Things stars Emma Stone, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Willem Dafoe, the other Spider-Man movies. Mark Ruffalo, The Incredible Hulk. It was fun while it lasted, at least. Lanthimos' films are definitely an acquired taste. They're strange films with odd concepts, upsetting visuals at times, and surreal storylines. And even if this was an acquired taste, I ate it up. Poor Things is essentially a Frankenstein story with our very endearing monster, played by Emma Stone, Bella, at its heart. It's a character that is interesting because she's totally out of her depth and trying to figure out the world around her, which is both entertaining and heartwarming, and really we get to see the character grow and develop over the course of the film. But also allows us to see the full range of Stone as a performer. Emma Stone is outstanding in this film, and I think we're going to see a lot of her come award season. But I do want to talk about two other fantastic performers. I mean, there's plenty of amazing performers in this. I want to talk about two. Willem Dafoe as this warped doctor, delivering lines at a performance I cannot imagine any single other actor in the world delivering. He plays it so well. He's just weird and funny and altogether memorable. It's a performance that has to be seen to be believed. And then we have, honestly, the real scene stealer of the film for me. I feels like this is someone we always know can act, but just takes a role every now and then to remind us. And that's Mark Ruffalo, who just plays this sleazy, swashbuckling moron to absolute perfection.
Oh.
Anytime he was on screen, I was dying. And that brings me to my next point. I don't think people are prepared for just how funny this film is. It's being kind of marketed as a surreal art house film, and it definitely is that, but it's also a really dark and funny comedy. And if you have a twisted sense of humour, you might enjoy it. Certainly I did. I would say I laughed at this film more than many other films this year, save for maybe one scene in a film we'll talk about in a sec. Because it kind of plays on the idea of Bella's understanding of the world and her figuring out the world, and it always gets some great laughs. It's also a very fantastical film. While it does feel somewhat grounded, it's also very, very surreal. It's a period piece. It's anachronistic, though, at the same time. It feels like I'm just contradicting myself all over the place, but that's what the film feels like. It has a kind of dreamlike quality to it. And has a real sense of style that I really, really enjoyed throughout the film. I should say, on that note, it does have some very jarring moments of graphic surgery. And it did elicit some gasps from the audiences I was with. And I mentioned this to a few people and they're like, oh, that kind of put them off a bit. I thought it was fine. I thought it kind of played up to a kind of comedic hyperbole. Maybe that was just me, but certainly they're so brief that it shouldn't put you off the rest of the film. The movie has a clear style. The use of lighting and colour was really, really stunning. Going from black and white to kind of vibrant, strange colours was really jaw-dropping to watch. The cinematography and set design is also outstanding in this. It goes from kind of, especially the cinematography, goes from kind of claustrophobic to more open, which totally suits the trajectory of the film and the story. So aside from that, the score is jarring, and when you put it all together, it creates a film that like shouldn't work, but it really does. It's absolutely mesmerizing, and it feels like this is an odd duck of a movie that just all these strange parts put together that really works. Almost like Frankenstein. In closing, I would say this is one of my favourite films of the year, and it's also a film where if someone else saw it and hated it, I totally understand it. It's a film that's kind of strange, subversive, and at times really, really shocking. And I would say also it is a long film and does kind of feel its length, but I do feel the pacing is generally well done, and it changed enough to keep me guessing over the course of the film. It kept me on my toes in that regard. I would say I haven't really seen any other film like it. Like, I can make comparisons, and obviously people are going to compare it to Frankenstein, but that's really skin deep. And I would say Poor Things runs very deep in general, lots of other strange directions that I wouldn't have expected. You could probably throw the accusation out that it's like a hodgepodge movie of various ugly, misfitted parts, but I think they did a great job of stitching it together and created a wonderful, weird monster of a film.
I must go punch that baby.
The autopsy report is inconclusive.
I think he fell.
An accidental fall is going to be hard to defend. Nobody's going to believe that.
Anatomie d'un chute a remporté la Palme d'Or au Festival de Cannes cette année. Je parle un peu de français. Fromage. So you didn't know I spoke French. Still a little bit classy. We're talking about a lot of films that could win awards, and now we're talking about a film that's already won a major award. This won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival, the top prize there. And I obviously can't speak to that because I haven't seen every film that played Cannes. I can't say if this is worthy or not. But I will say this is an excellent film and one of the best of the year. Now, if you're hearing that and rolling your eyes and thinking this is a lot of pretentious wank, you'd be wrong, because this film is certainly unpretentious enough to feature prominently a steel drum cover of 50 Cent's PIMP. Yeah, that was a surprise, and you'll never hear that song's name again. Instead, this is a real old school courtroom thriller, because what the title refers to is that a man falls to his death, but it's not clear whether he jumped, or he fell accidentally, or was he pushed. And the film is about his wife trying to prove her innocence in court. And it is absolutely captivating. While that premise might seem overdone, the idea of a courtroom procedure where you have to prove your innocence, they managed to keep it compelling by really complicating the narrative and never really giving an idea of what actually happened and what's real and what's imagined. And that keeps you really engaged throughout. But there's a lot going on in general. The idea that false memories can impact us and how reliable our memories are, how uncertainty can impact the legal system, and how outside perceptions can create kind of a false narrative. So there's a lot going on in such a simple film. Sandra Huller plays our lead, and she is excellent in the film. She speaks multiple languages and just manages to effortlessly swap between them and sounds so convincing and authentic in each of them. That's really, really impressive. But her character of this writer trying to prove her innocence is really cool as well, because we don't really get the sense that the character necessarily changes that much over the course of the film, but it's more that our perception of the character changes as new evidence comes to light. And that's a really fascinating way of approaching a character. And I do think in general, by the way, the film and the characters are sort of open to interpretation, which is really interesting as well. The only other actor I want to mention is the actor who plays her son. Not that the other actors in this aren't worthy of mention. There was excellent performances across the board. But of course, that character is caught up in the whole ordeal. And for such a young actor, he showed really great range and really became a very sympathetic character. And of course, one that is very pivotal to the story. And I just thought, for such a young performer, he really nailed it. All of these elements came together to create a 2.5 hour film that, for me, really flew by. And I can't often say that. They just really managed to add some twists that are believable in a courtroom setting without ever feeling overwrought. I do think a few people might be annoyed at some of the more ambiguous plot points, but for me this is a sharp script with great performances and direction. I can see why it played so well I can. What can I say? I fell for it.
I'm innocent, you know that, right?
Have you been dreaming about me?
Have I been dreaming about you?
Yeah.
Dream Scenario poses the question, what would happen if we all dream non-stop about Nicolas Cage? You mean we don't do that anyway? Nicolas Cage is never going to be an actor that's out of work, but it feels like every now and then we have to be reminded like, oh yeah, he actually is a very good actor when he needs to be. I mean, Pig was one of my favourite films a few years back, and here, again, I could see this being one of my favourite films of this year because his performance as this pathetic put-upon man that sort of ends up with this strange celebrity thrust upon him just feels like no other actor could do as good a job as he does. He really nails the sort of meme-like quality to his celebrity status in this, and it feels ideally suited to Nick Cage. The story, if you weren't aware, is that all of a sudden and without explanation, that one man starts appearing in everyone's dreams around the world. So it's kind of him dealing with this obsession and this unremarkable man all of a sudden being remarkable. It's a wonderfully absurd and creative plot for a film that I should say is produced by Ari Aster, and it really does feel like a film he would do. It actually feels mostly related to his film from this year, which is Beau is Afraid, but I do think I actually preferred this to Beau is Afraid. Besides Cage's performance though, it does feel like the movie has a lot to say about celebrity and cancel culture without ever being overbearing or beating you over the head with it. It does really just suit the story in that it's about a man who is totally uninteresting one day and all of a sudden the most interesting man ever, and how that changes his life and his relationships and how it goes with his family, and really, really captivating to watch. But what's also really kind of terrifying is the fact that he has no control over it. So what starts to happen when things start to change and he has no way of controlling it? While that could easily lead to a film that's a bit dense or overcomplicated, instead of focusing on the how and why, Dream Scenario focuses on the what happens next because of this situation, and it's the better film for it. And the wrinkles they keep adding to the story keep the film moving and keep developing it to a point where it's consistently interesting, and its 100 minutes, which would be short anyway, feels relatively brisk as a result. Aside from that, there are some interesting visual ideas, and the cinematography is decent. It's not overly flashy, it just feels like it's not really taken away from the film. It feels like, in general, it's a complete package and suits the film style. I should say, the film isn't as heavy as it sounds either. It's a pretty funny film as well. I mean, just the idea of Nicolas Cage being spotted parading through someone's dreams like that Patterson footage of Bigfoot is just a hilarious idea in and of itself. But there's also some really hilarious scenes. When I said there was a really funny scene from a film this year, this was one of them. There's a sex scene in this movie that's so hilariously awkward. I was laughing so hard I had to kind of bite my hand so as not to ruin the next scene of the film. And that's about as big an endorsement as I can give for a comedy scene. Certainly a strange movie, but those who get into bed with Dream Scenario will find a unique fantasy comedy that actually feels like it has something to say, but says it without it shouting at you through a megaphone. It's also got a great lead performance by Nicolas Cage that I think everyone can appreciate, and a pretty good turn from Michael Cera, if I do say. And it's full of laughs and actually gives you something to think about. Or dare I say, dream about. Ugh.
Guess I'll see you in my dreams.
Yeah. Of course not.
They died just before I was 12. I'm trying to write about them at the moment.
How's it going?
Strangely.
All of Us Strangers is a movie about and then he... Well, I never... Who do you think you are? Penis! Rosebud is the name of the sled. Another film that has not hit general public release yet, so I will tread lightly, as I will say one of my biggest enjoyments out of this film was knowing next to nothing about it when I walked into the screening. Saw this at my local film festival, the 68th Cork Film Festival. We're all looking forward to next year, lads. So this film is based on a Japanese book called Strangers. It follows a writer played by Andrew Scott who has to kind of re-examine his past in writing his new book, and that means revisiting his childhood and re-engaging with his parents. And also he manages to strike up a relationship with his mysterious neighbour Paul Mescal. That's about as much as I can say about the movie without giving too much away, because I don't think you should know too much going into this film, as I think that's how it's best experienced. One thing that's a shame about talking about a film this early on is that there hasn't really been any public discourse about it, so I really don't have anything to base this on, and I'm kind of interested to see what the actual reaction to this film will be, because I think it could be really interesting. I will say this was not the film I thought it was. I kind of assumed this was going to be a relationship drama, and while that's certainly a part of it, really is just the tip of the iceberg. I wasn't prepared for how surreal and out there this movie was, and I think at first it actually caught me off guard and took a while to win me back over. So beforehand we got a video introduction from the director who said the central kind of concept and idea was, what if you could meet your parents at a time when you were all the same age? And while that certainly is touched upon in the film, really the movie goes a lot deeper than that. It's about what made us who we are, and confronting grief and trauma from our past and the impact that can have on us, and how in revisiting our past it isn't always healthy and can really affect our health and our sanity. I know I'm being very, very vague here and speaking. I'd swear I saw the film, okay? I'm just trying to maintain the integrity of the film, so if you do see it, you'll still be surprised, because I do think a lot of people will be surprised at this, because it really was an emotional roller coaster of a movie, and naturally that roller coaster has lots of twists and turns along the way. And I will say, as much as I wasn't fully on board at the start, by the end it really had left a major impact on me. It's a limited cast, but the cast is phenomenal. Our lead is Andrew Scott, and can I just say, it's such a relief to see him get a role like this, because he's an absolute powerhouse of an actor, and he's great in this. He manages to bring a bit of levity in the scenes that are very intense, but also really nailing the emotional scenes, and we really feel sympathy for this character over the course of the film. He also has wonderful chemistry with Paul Mescal. Their relationship is very pivotal to the film, and it's such a pleasure watching them kind of develop and grow over the course of the movie. They're all excellent. We also have good performances from Jamie Bell and Claire Foy, but I'm not going to say too much more about them. But absolutely, the whole cast of this film did a great job. So yeah, probably my worst review to date, but hopefully it's done in preserving the experience of you seeing the film, and you should see the film, because it's really interesting. I think it's probably being sold as relationship drama with Andrew Scott and Paul Mescal, and that's really selling it short if they do it that way, because it's a really cerebral and emotional film that works. And aside from that, technically, I mean, the colour palette is kind of gorgeous in the film. There's a lot of great cinematography shots that are beautiful at times, and other times shockingly intense. The soundtrack is full of some 80s songs, and also a little bit of underlying score that at times, again, really, really worked incredibly well. Performances are great. The script is excellent. Yeah, this one is a winner. You may go into it thinking it's one thing, and hopefully you come out with something that, even if it's different to what you expect, hits a lot better, because that was my experience with the film. I don't know what to say, but I think you should definitely see it when it comes out. Don't be a stranger. Just go see the film, okay?